Imagine an empire at its peak, the pyramids touching the heavens, a civilization that seems eternal. Now, imagine you're the one who takes the throne just as the first, tiny cracks begin to appear in that foundation. This isn't a story about a glorious conqueror or a builder of monumental wonders. This is the story of Teti, the pharaoh who ruled on the very edge of chaos. When Teti became king around 2345 BCE, Egypt was a kingdom at a crossroads. The golden age of the 5th dynasty, with its sun temples and powerful pharaohs, was fading into memory. The centralized power that had built the Great Pyramids was starting to fray. Power wasn't just in the hands of the king anymore. It was leaking out, flowing towards ambitious nobles, influential priests, and the governors of distant provinces. Teti founded the 6th dynasty, a new royal line. But the kingdom he inherited was already showing signs of stress. It was like taking the helm of a magnificent ship just as you hear the first creaks and groans from deep within its structure. The challenge wasn't just to steer the ship, but to hold it together. So, how do you rule a kingdom that's slowly pulling apart? Teti's answer wasn't brute force. He was a master of compromise, a political strategist trying to balance a precarious new reality. He knew he couldn't rule by decree alone. He needed allies. And so, he began to weave a complex web of alliances to secure his throne and the unity of Egypt. One of his most significant moves was strategic marriage. Teti married his daughters to powerful regional officials, turning potential rivals into family. Most famously, he married Ibit, who was likely the daughter of Unas, the last king of the 5th dynasty. This marriage was a brilliant political statement. It connected his new dynasty directly to the old one, giving him a powerful claim to legitimacy. He was signaling continuity, not revolution. He also married Kut, another woman of significant influence. By tying his own family to the powerful noble houses of the land, he was essentially saying, "Your power is my power. Let's work together." This strategy extended to his court. Unlike his predecessors who often filled top positions with royal relatives, Teti promoted officials based on loyalty and skill, regardless of their bloodline. Men from outside the traditional royal circle rose to unprecedented heights. A prime example is his vizier, Mereruka, who became one of the most powerful men in Egypt. Teti even married his daughter, Watakthur, to Mereruka. Think about that. The king's chief minister was also his son-in-law. This created a powerful bond, but it also cemented the influence of these non-royal officials. This policy of decentralization kept the peace, for a time. By giving regional governors and high-ranking officials more autonomy and wealth, he kept them loyal. Their magnificent tombs, built near the king's own pyramid, stand as a testament to their incredible power. But every compromise came at a cost. Every piece of power Teti gave away to secure loyalty was a piece of power the crown lost forever. He was patching the cracks, but in doing so, he might have been making the foundation weaker in the long run. Even in death, Teti's choices reflect his reign. He built his pyramid at Saqqara, the ancient royal necropolis. Compared to the colossal pyramids of Giza, Teti's pyramid is modest, almost unassuming. It wasn't built to shock and awe with its size, but to be efficient and traditional. It's the pyramid of a practical king, not an absolute god-king of a bygone era. But inside this modest pyramid, Teti continued a revolutionary tradition. He had the walls of his burial chamber covered in the pyramid texts. These were hundreds of magic spells and incantations, a divine roadmap intended to guide and protect the king's soul in its journey through the afterlife. This practice had only been started by his predecessor Unas. By adopting it, Teti was again reinforcing his connection to the past while embracing the latest theological innovations to ensure his own eternal survival. Even as his worldly power was being challenged, he sought to secure his divine authority and eternal order in the face of a chaotic world. But the story of Teti's reign has a dark and mysterious chapter, a rumor that whispers of the ultimate breakdown of order. Ancient historical sources, written long after his time by the historian Manetho, hint at something shocking, something almost unheard of in the history of the pharaohs. They suggest Teti may have been assassinated, and not by a foreign enemy or a rival noble, but by his own royal bodyguards. Now, we can't be certain if this is true. It could be a later fabrication, a dramatic story told to explain the turmoil that followed. But the fact that this rumor even existed tells us everything we need to know about the state of Egypt during Teti's time. It means that the king's person, once considered a sacred and untouchable god on earth, was now seen as vulnerable. The divine authority of the pharaoh was no longer absolute. The idea that someone could dare to murder the king and get away with it meant the ultimate taboo had been broken. Whether Teti died peacefully in his bed or at the hands of his protectors, his death was followed by a period of instability. There seems to have been a short-lived usurper named Userkare who reigned for a brief time before Teti's son, Pepi, eventually secured the throne, likely with the help of his powerful mother Ipit. This struggle for succession further highlights the fragility of the royal line that Teti had tried so hard to stabilize. So why does Teti matter so much? He wasn't a weak king. In fact, you could argue he was an incredibly skilled politician, navigating a kingdom that was changing faster than anyone could control. He didn't cause the collapse of Egypt's old kingdom. That would come later. But during his reign, the cracks that would eventually shatter the kingdom became visible to everyone. Teti's story teaches us a fundamental truth about history, about power, and about the rise and fall of civilizations. Empires rarely collapse overnight in a single cataclysmic event. They weaken slowly, quietly, from the inside out. They weaken through necessary compromises, through the slow drift of power from the center to the periphery, and through the erosion of central authority. Teti was a king holding the line against the inevitable tide of change. He managed to keep Egypt unified through his intelligence and political maneuvering, but the forces pulling it apart were simply too strong. He represents that pivotal moment in history when the old certainties die and the future becomes dangerously unpredictable. After Teti, the path was set. The power of the pharaoh would continue to decline, and the regional nobles would continue to rise, paving the way for the eventual collapse of the Old Kingdom and the turmoil of the First Intermediate Period. He was the last king of a truly stable age, ruling on the very precipice of a new, more chaotic world. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back to ancient Egypt. If you're fascinated by these stories of power, politics, and the great turning points of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. We have many more stories to tell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.